Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we are going to write our first Saga. And the Saga we're going to make is the category Saga. This Saga is primarily going to replace our fetchCategoriesAsync Thunk. So what we want to do first is we want to create a new file inside of categories. I'm going to call it category.saga.js. And inside, what I need to replicate is this method. So I'm going to copy over our fetchCategoriesAsync Thunk just to use as a reference because we're really moving from Thunks to Sagas here. What I need to import are going to be first 4 of the Saga-based effect generators. So these are very similar to the different methods that we use inside of actual generator functions. However, Sagas have Redux bindings on them, meaning that we're able to access the Redux store, we're able to dispatch to it, and we do so through these methods. So first what I'm going to do is import from Redux Saga/effects. And that effects pretty much tells you these are side effect generators. I need take latest, I need all, I need call, and I need put. So I'm going to discuss what each of them do when we use them. For now, we just need to import them in. Next, what we need is we need this get categories and documents. What we also need is we need our actual action creators. So what I want is the fetch categories success, and I need fetch categories failed. And why we don't need fetch categories start, I'm going to talk about in a little bit once we actually start writing our Saga. And the last thing we need is the categories action type. So now that I have this, the first thing I want to do is I need to set up the actual export from this Sagas file. This is pretty much an accumulator that holds all of your Sagas that are related to the category. So here I'm going to generate this generator function, so export function with the star. And then I'm going to say categories Saga is equal to a function, and it yields the all call. Now, all is essentially an effect that says, hey, run everything inside and only complete when all of it is done. So remember with yield, at this point, it's going to execute this, and any further calls that we have down here don't happen until this finishes. So it's a pause essentially for this level until everything on this line following the yield is finished. All says that you can give me an array of different things that you are calling or different functions, different generators, whatever. And what it will do is it will wait until all of them complete before we continue. Now, inside of this array is where we are going to add our generators when we write them. So the first generator I want to write is something that triggers when we call fetchCategoriesStart. So generators respond to actions the same way that reducers do inside of their switch. With a switch statement, we say, hey, whenever I hear this action, I'm going to return something from my function. With Sagas, it's similar. Whenever an action happens and I hear it, I want to do something with it. So this is where we first write our generator function. So this is going to be function star, and I'm going to say on fetch categories. So this just means, hey, the moment I hear the action, category action types.start. So before, our async was the thing that actually fired off the actual action. But now instead, we are responding to category start. So here what I'm going to do is say, hey, I want to yield and I want to call take latest. So take is where we receive actions. Take latest means if you hear a bunch of the same action, give me the latest one. All the previous ones that heard, let's say we heard the same action 5 times in a row, back to back to back to back, before the generator finished, cancel the previous one, just restart with the latest one. Again, that'll make more sense once we write these actual Sagas out. So take latest gets 2 arguments. The first is the actual action type that you want to respond to. So here, I want to respond to fetch categories start. The next argument is what you want to actually happen. So this is where we are going to create this fetchCategoriesAsync Saga. It's essentially all the code inside of our try. So we're saying the moment we hear category start, run all the code that you had in here. So here, let's make a export function, fetchCategoriesAsync. Now, of course, we'll clash because we already have a function definition here, but we're going to get rid of it anyways. And inside of fetchCategoriesAsync is where we are going to pretty much do everything we were doing inside of the try. The only thing is we need to modify this so that it works within the generator, because you cannot have async await in the generator. Again, the generator is actually the basis for async await. And here, instead of await, we need to yield. Anytime you call a function, what is happening with this function is that this is an asynchronous event that happens. And await is saying, hey, I want you to wait until this comes back with something. Yield is very similar. I want you to wait until this comes back with something. But this needs to be a generator effect, which is where you use call. Anywhere you have a function and you want to turn it into an effect, you essentially use the call keyword. The way that call works is you pass it a variable, which is a callable method. So for us, it's the getCategoriesAndDocuments method. And then what you pass to it are going to be the parameters for this. So getCategoriesAndDocuments receives a string, if you remember, and we're passing it the category string. So by calling it like this, we're saying, hey, this is the method, call it with these parameters. And now that we have this, what we need to do after is we need to actually dispatch out fetchCategoriesSuccess when categoriesArray comes back. But we don't actually call dispatch inside of a generator. We call put. So here we're going to say, I want you to yield put, and then we're going to call our fetchCategoriesSuccess with the categoriesArray. And then we're going to do the same thing with fetchCategoriesFailed in case we actually fail. And that's it. This is our fetchCategoriesAsync Saga. We then take this and we pass it as the second argument of our onFetchCategories takeLatest. And now the way that the code will flow is that essentially we're saying whenever we take the latest fetchCategoriesStart action, what we're going to do is we're going to initialize the fetchCategoriesAsync Saga. This Saga is going to attempt to fetch our categoriesArray from Firebase. And if that's successful, then we are going to put, which is the generator version of dispatch, this fetchCategoriesSuccess action with the categoriesArray. If this fails, meaning to fetch Firebase ever fails, then instead we're going to take that error and we are going to dispatch a fetchCategoriesFailed error. Both of these actions that get generated go back into the Redux flow and in turn will update the reducers or any sagas that are listening for these actions. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this onFetchCategories Saga and we are going to listen to it inside of our category Saga aggregator. So here I'm going to say all is going to get the call with onFetchCategories. Similarly, we need to take this category Saga and import it into the root Saga. And here, this is coming from our categories Saga. And what we're going to do, very similar with our root Saga as we have with our other aggregator sagas. We're going to yield the all call with an array passing call category Saga. The last step that we need to do is that inside of our shop component, we need to stop dispatching fetchCategoriesAsync. If you remember inside of this category action, this is no longer necessary because we no longer work with thunks. Instead, what we're going to use is we are just going to say, hey, fetchCategoriesStart, because that's what this category Saga is listening for, fetchCategoriesStart. So that is going to be what we dispatch out from our shop component on mount. And now if we go back to our application and we restart, what we see is that we see our fetchCategoriesStart. And then what we see after we get the start is our fetchCategoriesSuccess, which is a Redux Saga action. And inside of here, you'll notice that we have indeed our categories payload. And of course, our state updates appropriately and the rest of our application works, hence why we can see these products. So this is it. This is our category Saga migration from a category Thunk. So right now, you may not realize why this pattern seems so powerful. What was the point of switching to the Thunk to a Saga when it really just seemed we had more boilerplate code added? This becomes much more powerful once we need to start coordinating multiple async events, and that's what we're going to do with the user actions and user thunks. So join me in the next video where we will tackle that together. I'll see you in the next video.